2025. The year is finally coming to an end. And what a year it's been. The politics, the drama, the war. We're going to do a political recap of what's happened over the last 12 months and then have a look forward and make some predictions for 2026. This year was Sir Keir Starmer's first year as Prime Minister and the Labour Party's first year back in office, back in power after 14 long and hard years on the cold benches of opposition. Having won like this supermajority, this major landslide victory, the so-called loveless landslide, and I think it truly was a loveless landslide because it was more people had lost faith in the Conservative Party after 5 prime ministers over the last 8 years. You know, Liz Truss and the bond market crash, Partygate with Boris Johnson. You know, it was a shambles. We've been through COVID. The immigration crisis was worse. We didn't trust them with the economy anymore. And, you know, Keir Starmer got 9 million votes, which was less than Jeremy Corbyn got when he lost to Boris and lost constituencies held by Labour for over 100 years before that, which we considered a landslide victory for Boris at the time. You know, and I don't know, to say that this has been a tough year for Labour, you know, now that the 12 months have passed, I mean, that would be a huge understatement. This has been a terrible year for Keir Starmer and a terrible year for the Labour Party. I mean, Keir Starmer is polling as the most unpopular British Prime Minister in history. And, you know, I think it was just he got off to a bad start right from the offset, you know, with all these scandals of being gifted suits and whatnot. But I think one of the key pivotal moments in British political history this year was in June with the U-turn, the reverse, the ditching of the welfare reform bill. I think that was the shift. That was the pivotal moment because not only, you know, you've come into power, you've won this landslide, you've got the majority. It's not supposed to be difficult to get something through Parliament, to push bills through Parliament. That's the point. And he's come in, and instead of wielding his power and fist on the desk, you know, he showed that he couldn't control his own backbenchers, that they have held him to ransom and they've won. You know, so that shows weakness, lack of leadership. You know, he's been embarrassed and humiliated by his own backbenchers. Not only that, but it puts the scent of blood into the water. Then the sharks can smell that. Potential leadership challenges and contesters, which no doubt there will be leadership challenges ahead. Perhaps Andy Burnham, you know, if he can get a caucus wrapped around him in private meetings and, you know, public endorsements. We'll talk about predictions for 2026 anyway at the end. But the point being that ditching that welfare reform bill wasn't just in and of itself, you know, that was all it was, fine. But that was kind of the first domino. And once that domino had knocked, that then in turn dictated how much play, how much margin they had for the budget. And the budget, I mean, come on, the budget was a fiasco, shambles in and of itself. You had the pre-budget, you had Rachel Reeves coming up and doing this whole pre-budget press conference where she was really coming out to say like, oh, I'm going to have to break this manifesto commitment and raise taxes. Shout out to Rishi Sunak. I mean, he was right on that, right?
No, this is important. Mark my words. Labour will raise your taxes. It's in their DNA. Your work, your car, your pension.
Thank you. Okay,
you name it.
Sorry,
Labour will tax it.
But then she doesn't even have the balls to actually just come out and say that. It's all a bit... And then the backlash in the media, in the party, in constituencies, you know, even having done all of that, U-turn on doing a U-turn on the manifesto commitment and don't put the tax up and create this smorgasbord is ridiculous. And it shows weakness, lack of leadership. Again, like even if they had just done the unpopular thing, it would have at least shown some strength. I mean, this guy is supposed to be wielding power and he doesn't seem to have power to lead his party. It seems like the media can change his opinion, the people can change his opinion, his backbenchers can change his opinion and force him into U-turns. Powerless and weak. And then the actual budget itself, you know, I was I was sat here on budget day watching live, and you know, I've never seen something like it before. The OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, leaks or like publishes by accident the full budget 45 minutes before it's read in the Commons. Wild. So you've got like the news reporters on Sky, on BBC, on everywhere else. They're all reading out the budget while we're still waiting for 45 minutes to come out. And they just go ahead with PMQs like nothing happened. I mean, this is a real coup for Kemi Badenoch as well, to be fair, because that gives her team behind the scenes working like hell, finding sound bites, looking into all of this stuff. So she's way more prepared than any other opposition leader has been. You know, it's unprecedented to have that kind of that time to really get your sound bites in, get your talking points on how to deal with this afterwards. You know, what they should have done, he should have just been like, we've messed up here, cancelled PMQs, gone straight to the budget, shortened the time that the opposition had to formulate a coherent argument and, you know, to trash this budget, especially considering that, like I said, because of their ditching of the welfare reforms, their margin, they were forced kind of where they were. The budget was going to be what it was. I mean, at that point, it was fairly obvious already that this whole putting economic growth first policy, you know, that they were running on, that was over with this budget, as well as tackling the public debt. That was definitely over, you know. This kind of theme though of U-turns, backtracking, backstabbing, you know, inertia. I think this is the defining feature of this government. It's been an absolute shambles. And for Keir Starmer, I mean, it's sad to say that if everything we've said so far was all of his problems, he'd be a happy man. He would take that if he could. Because it's not all that there is. I mean, they've had the Epstein files be released, right? And that Lord Peter Mandelson, who he's appointed as the ambassador to the United States, who's all in the Epstein files, emailing this guy, messaging him, sending him letters in prisons about how much he loves him, you know, how much of a good friend he is to him. This is a convicted paedophile. So he's had to resign, ousted from government once again. Peter Mandelson. You could trust him every time to be that ticking time bomb to cause a problem. And then, you know, once he's out, he's even being photographed in London since then, like pissing up the wall in public in London. Lord Peter Mandelson photographed pissing up a public wall in public after being ousted from the government for his ties and his exposure in the Epstein files as a close friend of a paedophile, supporting a paedophile in jail. Absolutely unreal. And that's kind of where like Kemi Badenoch really drew first blood, because I think the policy had been, you know, from the Conservative Party and board telling her, look, you're not very popular, tone it down, keep wind your neck in, basically. And like, you know, from that moment on though, she's really took a different approach, and she drew blood there, and she's continued to do better over the last few months. But I mean, like, the Conservative Party is in dire straits itself. I mean, they're polling so low, they're just basically gone at this point. You know, they're kind of irrelevant. I mean, 24 hours is a long time in politics, fair enough. There's still some time left. But as things stand right now, at the end of this year, they've been totally insignificant this entire year. And that's pretty wild, because they're probably the most successful, the most historically successful and popular party and influential, powerful party in British politics, historically speaking. Keir Starmer's popularity, you know, it's hard to really overstate how unpopular Keir Starmer is in certain parts of the country. You only have to look at the videos, the Keir Starmer's a wanker chants. You've got, Keir Starmer's a wanker.
Now, 1, 2, 4. Recalibrate.
What do we want? Starmer! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Starmer! When do we want it? Now! Starmer is a wanker! Starmer is a wanker! Starmer is a wanker!
Pub landlords kicking him out of the pub. Labour MPs are all banned from loads of pubs are banning Labour MPs across the capital and across the country, and now barbers doing the same thing, right? Banning Labour MPs.
That man is not allowed in my pub. No, Lord. I'm not going to physically hurt him. That man. Oi! That's assault. I am not bothering you. I am not bothering him. That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub. Thank you.
Good on them. And you've got the farmers protesting, tractors down in London blocking the street. Jeremy Clarkson, trying to put these new inheritance taxes on farmers, the people that make our food, and then having to U-turn on that as well. They have at least upped it to 2 million, but 2 million before, so doubling the amount of wealth of the property before it will come into effect. And all of these things just show the weakness of the party. Whether they're doing things that are more popular or not, the fact that they were trying something and had to change their mind shows a lack of power. And, Keir Starmer, he was also head of the CPS during, while the grooming gang scandal was going on and through the Savile days and all this. He's a guy that worked pro bono, saving people from the death penalty that had stabbed their pregnant girlfriends to death and stuff. He wrote the textbook on how to stop deportations from terrorists.
You statist! You're a child abuser! You child abuser! You child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile? Where's Jimmy Savile? Get back! Traitor! You scumbag! You child abuser!
This guy was a human rights lawyer. This guy, he's Sir Keir Starmer. One cool thing he did do, I suppose, was the McLibel case. Pretty cool. I mean, it is kind of tough to be very complimentary for Keir Starmer on this first year of his leadership, of his premiership. I mean, one thing he gets a bit of credit for is for whispering Trump, being a bit of a Trump whisperer. Personally, I don't even really give him much of that. I mean, he's kind of done what he had to do. I suppose he handled it quite well, like going to the Oval Office and presenting Donald Trump with this letter from the King, inviting him for a second state visit. But I mean, he's kind of lucked out there, right? He's lucked out because Donald Trump's mum happened to be born on an island of Scotland. He happens to like the royal family. He happens to be quite an Anglophile. I mean, other than that, Keir Starmer's just basically done what you would just have to do. I know you have like Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, kind of giving him a bit of stick for cozying up Trump, for kissing the ring, saying, "Oh, we should be challenging Trump." But this is all just for Ed Davey to try and boost his own profile, because really, as British Prime Minister, post-Brexit, I mean, like, what choice does anyone have? I mean, clearly Starmer doesn't like Trump. Clearly Trump doesn't like Starmer. I mean, look at him snubbing him at the Knesset. You see that when... we'll play the clip. Let's play the clip.
Where's the United Kingdom? Where's our friend? Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
That's very nice that you're here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice, and I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and just so many others.
What Keir Starmer's done is kiss the ring. He's biting his tongue. He's being polite. He's pandering to Trump's ego. Give him a second state visit. And doing what he has to do. And he does have to do it. Because where are we at? England's broke. England's broke. We've got no money. We've got a deficit. We've got like 80,000 troops and 7 frigates. What are we going to do? We need America. I mean, there's this whole cultural shift that's happened. Europe used to have mighty empires. You used to have the German Reichs. You had the Soviet Union. You've had Napoleon's France. You've had the British Empire. Nowadays, even a war in Ukraine, it's like all of Europe together seems like we can't do anything. It seems like NATO can't do anything about it without America's backing. America is 80% of NATO. Just look at you've got the head of NATO calling Donald Trump daddy.
Hello.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Like, this year has really highlighted in geopolitics and domestic politics kind of how far things have changed since the post-war sort of world order. Especially after the fall of the Soviet Union, when there was just that America was the only hegemon. It's gone into like this new world where there's China, there's Russia, there's America, the nuclear, industrial, military superpowers, a multipolar world, and the old post-war world order is just like no longer withstanding. And you can see that not only has the global economy changed, but that's also, there's been this massive political change that comes with that. And like the rise of populism. You've got this spread of right-wing parties going across Europe, but they're not just on the right. It's like on the left, you have Zach Polanski, right? Leader of the Greens. Elected as leader of the Green Party. He's doing phenomenally well. He's kind of taking the leaf out of Reform's book, social media campaigns, charismatic talking, populism, bright colours. I mean, that must be a real kick in the teeth as well for Ed Davey and the Liberal Democrats, because Zach Polanski was a Liberal Democrat and the Liberal Democrats aren't doing so well. And the Liberal Democrats are kind of, they're kind of trapped as well politically, because they were fighting in constituencies, not really trying to take Labour seats, but they were trying to stop the Conservatives from winning the next election. They were pretty effective in that, actually. They did pretty well. Made a bit of a comeback after having been dead after Nick Clegg, in coalition. Anyway, now that they have, like, where they have had their successes, the thing is, when you take constituencies that are battlegrounds for the Tories, now in the Commons, he can't really pack as much of a punch against economic policy that's happening, because the constituents where he does hold power are all fiscally conservative areas. You know, and he just, despite having tried all these stunts and the Boris style, you know, stunts to get in, like, he just isn't having anything near the traction at the moment that Polanski's been having. And Polanski likes to say that he's the third party now, but, you know, there's a bit of a trickery in there, sleight of hand, if you like, because, you know, they are the third largest party in terms of membership. You know, the Tories struggling to keep above 100,000 members. Labour, we don't really know exactly how many members they have. It's not public. Reform just absolutely smashing it. But I mean, like, Jeremy Corbyn, when they had the leadership contest, the vote of no confidence, people were trying to oust Jeremy Corbyn, and he had that massive surge in party membership joining to reaffirm him. Obviously, they never got the letters to get him out, to oust him. And then he got more of the vote in that election and lost by a landslide. So having the most, having your numbers in party membership doesn't necessarily translate into taking power, is the point. So Polanski is doing well, and I think he probably will make some gains in the council elections, in the May elections. I would say, actually, that 2026, the May elections, are probably the most important by-elections and May elections that have ever occurred during my lifetime. If Labour loses Wales, you know, they're polling at 10% there. I think it's going to be really hard for Keir Starmer to make a case to maintain his premiership. But yeah, so you've got, anyway, this rise in sort of populism on the left and on the right, and you've got fractions within the left. Everything's like splitting and fracturing off. You've got Labour, you've got you know, dead in the polls, absolutely dead. Then you've got Zara Sultana, you know, fired from the Labour Party. You've got Jeremy Corbyn, ex-Labour leader, you know, and her together forming your party. They can't even get along themselves. They're falling out, right? Their party, you say your party, their party is a joke. The conference was a joke. They've been ousted as leaders anyway. You know, so that's one split on the left. Labour, your party, the Greens, Lib Dems, and they're none of them are getting away, like getting along with each other. On the right, you've got the Conservatives, dead in the water. Nigel Farage absolutely smashing it in the polls. Then you've got the likes of Ben Habib with Advance UK, the backing of Tommy Robinson and people like a little further on the right and whatnot. And then Rupert Lowe, what was his one called? British... I can't remember what Rupert Lowe's party was called, but the point is there's a load of factions on the right. The mainstream parties are like kind of nowhere to be seen, and all of the attention is on the Greens and Reform and these populist parties. The Overton window's changing as well in strange and interesting ways, because it's not like the Greens are just trying to take Labour voters and Reform are just trying to take Conservative voters. Reform and the Greens are going for the same demographics of people, of constituents, of voters, they're fighting for the same people that are disaffected with politics and apathetic or just not particularly active in politics. And it's just a strange thing, and it's not just here either. It's like across the pond. You've got you know, this split in MAGA about the Epstein files, about Israel and Gaza, about you know, after Charlie Kirk's assassination, you've got the rise of Nick Fuentes on one side, and you've got Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and on the other side you've got your Ben Shapiro's. This split between, you know, especially the youth vote, unpopular with the popularity of Israel and supporting Israel and Israel in the war. Turning Point USA. I mean, you've had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, it just seems like MAGA's fragmented and factionalized as well now. And it seems like over here we have the same thing on the left. You know, they're split on Israel as well. We have it on the right. So politics has really changed. And I think 2025 has been one of those years that has just really highlighted that we're living in such a different world than what we did before. And this is without even going into like the rise of AI, you know. You had Sydney Sweeney doing the, I've got good genes, and then you've got the counterpart, the non-binary, fully AI advert model. You've got AI music artists. You've got, the eye-watering sums of investment and money that are going into the US. Into these companies, Nvidia, into the manufacturing, Meta, Google, XAI, OpenAI, Microsoft. It's absolutely wild. I mean, to be honest, we'll do a whole podcast on AI and what's coming and what's happening. It's not really the point here, but 2025. I think part of what defines 2025 as well, or will do going forward, it has kind of been the death of centrism. You had from the Blairite sort of a new Labour movement, that centre-left, sort of red Tory Blair government, to then you had kind of like blue Labour, sort of centre-right, globalist, liberal progressive conservatism from David Cameron, championing and legalising gay marriage and net zero targets and green agendas. So there's been like very centrist, globalist governments for a long time, and that seems to have gone. It seems now it's more people are turning away from the centre and going further left to the likes of Polanski and further right to the likes of Nigel Farage. And it's not just here; it's over the pond as well. You've got Trump and the America First movement, this rejection of Joe Biden and wokeism. And you've got, Zoran Mamdani being elected the mayor of New York. It seems like it's splitting that way. And I mean, we've mainly talked about British politics for obvious reasons. But I mean, what a year it's been over in the States. Donald Trump 2.0. Like, wow. For better or for worse, I don't think there's ever been a presidency like this in history. I mean, the guy took office and he's just come in, hit the ground running like a bull in a china shop. Just on day one, instantly just signing executive orders to undo all of the executive orders from the last administration. I mean, undoing all the DEI mandates, Doge, the whole Doge thing, Elon Musk. It wasn't the greatest year for Elon Musk and his companies. Although when all of that craziness was going on with Tesla, people burning down the factories and stuff, at least I did think to buy the dip, and said as much at the time. A lot of people called me an idiot. I decided that I'd take a little risk and buy some of the dip of the current Tesla crash. He has fixed the issues on the southern border. He did that pretty much instantly, down like 96%. I think it's pretty much 100% now. There's no immigration going on over there. So he did that. He put tariffs on the whole world, his Liberation Day. I mean, even the penguins got tariffed. Pretty wild. I mean, slapped it on everyone. He's used them as bully tactics. This America First policy, I mean, he really meant what he said. They're isolationist, nationalist. They're the big dog on the block, and they're using their power, and everyone's feeling it. Canada's feeling it. England got slapped with a 10% tariff despite this trade deal that was supposed to be so great. He has stopped a lot of wars. The India and Pakistan conflict, the Congo conflict, the Thailand conflict. He's stopped all these wars, got the ceasefire secured in the Israel-Palestine conflict, had that moment and these massive rapturous applause and ovations at the Knesset, getting the hostages back. It's been a mixed bag, though. He's also had that moment in the Oval Office with Zelensky where Trump and J.D. Vance just totally bullied, humiliated and ambushed President Zelensky.
Beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing
I'm very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you
You're
speak
gambling
about?
with
What do you
World
speak
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to you.
He had that historic meeting with Putin in Alaska. What else has happened? The death of Charlie Kirk. There's been that split in MAGA, the rise of Fuentes. The split in MAGA, I think, a lot as well over this Epstein files, the unpopularity of, this being such close bedfellows with Israel and Netanyahu. Not this fighting against releasing the Epstein files after running on the idea of transparency and releasing them along with the JFK files, the MLK files. It's been a bit of a letdown. You've got ICE officers running around in masks, detaining people, sending people to El Salvador and whatnot. The National Guard deployed across cities in America. I mean, the Venezuela, bombing Venezuelan ships off the coast. I mean, it's seriously wild. I mean, to think about it years ago, to imagine that you would have a president who is literally bombing boats off the coast of Venezuela and tweeting it on his Twitter account. Just tweeting out videos of blowing people up, assassinating people in the water. It's strange times that we live in. Record investment into the country. It's secured about $14 trillion worth of investment in the first 10 months. I think the record for investment in a term of office was or in a year, was China with $3 trillion previously, and he's secured investment commitments of up to $14 trillion in his first 10 months in office. Bombed Iran's nuclear facilities, which I predicted would happen. I think a lot of people saw that coming. Mixed bag with Donald Trump and his second term. Had that second state visit here. What a year we have had. What a year we have had. We can't talk about 2025 without addressing the main winner, I would say, of the year politically. Was undoubtedly, hands down, Nigel Farage and Reform UK. There's absolutely meteoric rise in the polls. He's been leading in the polls the entire year, despite these accusations of racism at school and all the internal struggles and battles that he's had and embarrassments he's had with the Welsh leader being in prison for taking bribes from Russia. Reform UK, you could argue actually that Nigel Farage has been the most disruptive, the most influential figure in British politics for years now, since UKIP, since the Brexit referendum that took down Cameron. But it's changed. This year it really has changed, because before it was a kind of a protest party that was that forced David Cameron's hand into giving this referendum to quell his backbenchers and stuff. And I'm not sure that everyone saw it coming, that this would translate into real political power, the actual votes at the ballot box. I mean, it took until September, but Keir Starmer at the conference, when he gave his speech, he finally, conceded that Reform are the main opposition, not Kemi Badenoch, not the Tories. That their opposition is Reform UK. And I think that's right. I mean, certainly the polls suggest that. And to think where he's come from and where he's got to and where he stands, where it looks like he might be going. Nigel Farage is undoubtedly the political winner in British politics over 2025. Nigel Farage, he's been there, talking about the current issues that really matter to a lot of constituencies in England. The immigration, having had more immigrants come over the Blair administration than we'd had into the country for the 1,000 years before, and continuing every year under Labour and under the Conservatives. The migrant hotel scheme. I dropped my own documentary in February from inside of a migrant hotel, and that did well. That got a lot of mainstream media attention.
Nobody has ever managed to get inside an asylum hotel and document just exactly what privileges and what kind of behaviour takes place behind those steel barriers.
Welcome to Aston Knight.
Aston Knight. Aston Knight is...
Hello, Aston. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well. You've actually caught me on my birthday, so...
Oh, wow. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Well, this is a bit of a present, us having this story, so thank you for this.
Talk TV, GB News, Sky News Australia, the Daily Mail, Daily Telegraph. Shout out to all those guys, Isabel Oakeshott. I mean, and then there's been all of these other issues as well, these cultural issues, the grooming gangs scandal and the demand for a new inquiry into that, Labour trying to fight against having this inquiry, the whole fiasco of appointing people to deal with the victims of all of this stuff. We had Prince Andrew stripped of his titles this year as well, so he's now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And this whole like Farage, this whole shift to the right, the immigration policy issues. We had the raise the colours movement, putting the flags up, has caused all of these issues. We've had obviously protests outside of the migrant hotels across the country, especially Epping hotels, like kind of the ground zero for the migrant hotel protests. And you had that moment as well where there was an injunction to get the migrants thrown out of that hotel and moved out of the community, and it was overturned by the courts. I went down after that was overturned and went to that actual protest and interviewed one of the Reform UK local councillor there, because obviously that was a moment that was going to set a precedent and could have spiraled to other hotels and legal precedent to throw migrants out of hotels across various communities in the country, which obviously didn't happen. So here we are in Epping. Well,
We have to stop. Slow down!
Right, they're going to listen to me.
Yeah. So Epping, you're involved in the local politics here, right?
Yeah.
You are.
Sadly, because it's gone to a very gutter level, I have to say.
That's a tragedy. But what about this turnout?
Huh?
I don't see anything that anyone could describe as far right.
Look at his local mums. Look in front.
Concerned citizens about their families, about their culture.
And the local councillor here, who Orla will replace very soon at the next election, when the local Conservatives stop cancelling elections.
Come on, let me get the handshake in.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Lovely.
So Orla will be the next councillor here in Epping, and she had a good chance of winning anyway. But when the councillor for Epping decided to label all the people here as Nazis and far right, and I don't even know all the other awful things, it's brought this into a real gutter level that should have been avoided. And there are some people, I hope, at the next election that will be gone, because this community then can only go forwards in a more positive way. And we learned from what the council haven't done, and I think serious questions need to be answered, and it's right they have the fair right to reply on that as well. I think,
of course,
because I'm not saying the judge is wrong, but what he read out, if it's true, is pretty bad on them. So let's hope maybe there's technicality that they might have mistaken.
What about the idea that this will be a precedent for other communities across the country?
Less. We need to stop people coming here. This idea that we're going to do judgments based on precedent, I'm sorry, that's not how you run a law. That's not how the law was designed. Okay. The law is the law. If the law has been broken, then it needs to be dealt with that way. We can't run a country where, don't want to start a precedent. This is not, some sort of friendship circle that's having a row and be like, well, if we fall out, we can't chip in for that person's birthday present. The law is the law. But more importantly than the law, frankly, is how people are feeling in this community. And they are scared. There are parents that are scared of their children walking to school next week. That has got to be the sovereign point of discussion here. Nothing else frankly matters. And the idea, I'm sick and tired of people saying, precedent this, precedent that. What about if they all get put in HMOs? Stop them coming here. They can be arrested, detained and deported, and we can leave the ECHR. And the government can do that tomorrow. They have a massive majority in Parliament. But here's the problem. Nobody seems to be talking about. The government does not have a Parliament that supports the agenda of closing the hotels. Because those Labour MPs are very happy. In fact, I would argue those Labour MPs would rather be giving out Christmas presents in this hotel for the people in there than they would about getting them sent back.
And then there was this moment, this has been retweeted by Elon Musk, had like 36 million views, where Sarah got arrested. I mean, there you can see that's me coming down the stairs. So I was right there while that went on as well. Yeah, that was an interesting moment and a viral moment for good reason. I mean, I was stood right beneath her while she was raising that flag. Look, that's my head there. This is my head. Anyways, so looking ahead to 2026, what we're going to see happening in 2026, what are the predictions? And I'd love to hear from anyone who does watch this. Jump in the comments or whatever, and put some predictions in for 2026, and we'll see who was right and who was wrong. I think that obviously a lot is hinging on what happens in the May elections. The devolved states, Scotland, Wales, Labour polling at just 10% in Wales. I mean, I think that Labour leadership contests next year seem pretty inevitable at this point. The question is who, this whole thing that came up with Keir Starmer's number 10 giving briefings about Wes Streeting and all of this stuff, and then him looking like he just doesn't have control of anything because he says, oh no, it's not sanctioned by him and whatnot. So Wes Streeting, I think, has almost been thrown into the mix and raised in profile just because of that actually seemingly wrong accusation of him mounting a leadership challenge. Andy Burnham, obviously probably one of the favourites. I think he's just waiting to get the support. I think he's kind of left it open-ended. I would probably have Andy Burnham as the favourite. Rachel Reeves, I think, is going to make a comeback one way or another. We haven't seen the last of her. I think she'd undoubtedly would run in the event that there was going to be another election and Keir Starmer was going to have to go, and there was going to be a race for the leadership of the Labour Party. I think Shabina Mahmood is going to be a key figure to watch out for as well. She's had this rising profile since that speech she did in the Commons.
I have to say to the honourable gentleman, I wish I had the privilege of walking around this country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him, unfortunately, I am the one that is regularly called a fucking packy and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience and that of my constituents just how divisive the issue of asylum has become in our country.
I think she represents a sort of part of the another part of the core base of Labour, a faction that's kind of doesn't like the way since conference in September that Keir Starmer's been trying to almost out Farage and deal with the immigration crisis. She kind of represents that that faction of the left that completely disagrees with how he's handling this immigration crisis. Likewise, Angela Rayner, despite having to stand down as housing minister for not paying the stamp duty on a property that she bought, she's still a darling of the left, of a lot of the base of the left that see her as kind of the darling representative of social mobility, coming from a working class family and having made it all the way to where she has. I mean, Dave, as much as you think Keir Starmer's tenure is in question, I would also say David Lammy. I mean, it's not a very popular move, this whole trying to take away the right to trial, jury trials in court cases to try and deal with this backlog of cases. Morgan McSweeney, who was pivotal in getting Keir Starmer into position to be where he is now, and obviously is Keir Starmer's chief of staff. Yeah. What else? I mean, hopefully we'll see some progress on trying to get an end to this war in Ukraine. They've got the 20-point peace plan being negotiated at the moment, and some of it's got to do with holding a referendum. Ukraine holding a referendum to try and see whether people support surrendering some of the territory that's held by Russia. I would hazard a guess and say that during that process, you will see the rise of some figures that will be a challenge to Zelensky in the next Ukrainian election. It's sort of like how Boris Johnson and Michael Gove and David Davis, the Brexiteers, during the Brexit referendum campaign, that patriotic kind of self-promotion of people looking for, future leadership challenges. I would say in Ukraine, when this referendum happens, there's going to be loud voices that are saying, don't give up any of the land, let's keep fighting, let's not give, and that kind of populist, national, patriotic voice can be very compelling, and people that, whichever way the deal works out, it looks like it's not going to favour Ukraine, and someone can start to position themselves to put themselves in position to challenge Zelensky in the next election. So I think watch out for some figures in Ukraine during that referendum campaign. I think Labour, it looks like, are going to lose Wales next year. I mean, they've changed the voting system, so it's not going to be a first past the post. It's a complicated system. There's going to be, I think, a lot of different tactical and strategic moves to try to defeat Reform or hold their rise back in the May elections. What else do we have to look forward to? There's the midterm elections with Donald Trump. Probably my prediction would be he loses the House, keeps the Senate, but we'll see. We'll see on that. What else I will say in regards to leadership challenges for Keir Starmer is even though it seems like leadership challenges may become inevitable, it's not so easy and it's not such a sure thing that that leadership challenges or attempts to oust him as Prime Minister would be successful. Although it's happened like many times, we've had 5 Prime Ministers in the last 8 years under the Tory party. I mean, it's notoriously difficult to oust a Labour Prime Minister. The way that the parties are set up are just fundamentally different. You've got the 1922 Commission in the Tory party, you've got the NEC or, whatever else apparatus they have in the Labour Party. It seems difficult. It was like nearly a decade of campaigning for the Brownites to try and oust Tony Blair, And when Tony Blair did eventually give up power and left it to Gordon, I mean, I think it was kind of on his own terms. It was the economy was going bad. We had the recession, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was kind of like, there you go, Gord, you can have it. He left him like up the creek, basically. So, it's not obvious that they're going to be able to get him out, even if they want to. There's inertia, there's inaction, there's just indecisiveness. You could have a vote of no confidence. They tried this with Jeremy Corbyn, didn't work. They have to get 80 letters from MPs with a named candidate. Will they all agree and rally around one person, or will there be too many people battling against each other that none of them win, none of them get the full support? So it's difficult to say. I wouldn't be surprised if he does make it through the year as Prime Minister. But in my heart of hearts, I feel like this is his last Christmas and New Year in number 10. And I think rightly so. I mean, especially if he loses Wales and they lose badly, like, how the polls are suggesting that they might now in May, then I think he has to go, really. I think he will have to go. The question then becomes, do we just get another appointed, a party election, a new Prime Minister without a general election, or will we have another general election? I wouldn't be surprised if we get a general election in maybe 2027. I don't think next year we will. I think they'll want to drag it out long enough to try and do something to mitigate the risk from reform, at least. Anyways, like I said, if you guys agree or disagree or have any other predictions for 2026, feel free to jump in the comments and put a prediction down there. We'll have a little review of them later on in the year and see how they go, or at the end of next year. I think that's it, and we've covered enough for today. So goodbye to 2025 and Happy New Year to everyone. Take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.